In the quiet halls of science's quest, a whisper stirs, a daring jest, an engine of dreams. It seems to glide in the cosmic dance, the EmDrive. No fiery fuel to propel its flight, just microwaves in the vacuum's light. A resonance mysterious, defying norms. In the silent void, the EmDrive forms. No fuel expended, no fuel expelled, no fiery trail. Yet forward it moves, a cosmic sail. A puzzle wrapped in science's rhyme, a journey through the fabric of space and time. In laboratories, minds entwine to grasp the secrets to boldly define the forces at play in this cosmic rhyme, in the quest for truth through space and time. Oh, EmDrive, an enigma profound in the vast cosmos where mysteries abound. A silent dance in a celestial sea, a testament to human curiosity. Personally, I don't think that was horrible, I gotta admit.
That's what I was thinking too.
You know, I don't know who just said that, but let me put my face on first of all. This is me, Shen, as you can probably tell. The camera seems crooked, so it's not like the bookshelf is tilted. All right. Anyways, so this is me. What are you listening to?
Yeah, that was what I wanted to know.
I should have switched to my shirt. Right now, I can't really change without it being extremely awkward. Let's just. It's SG2 on space. All right, the only weekly space show, episode 198, and guess who this person is? Who is quietly munching? I can't unmute whomever that is because
you're mute. Sorry.
That's fine. I apparently have no power to unmute you if you muted yourself. So Leonard Kramer, today known as just me. So no fancy title for him for this episode. Nice headband though, as always. That's a signature move. Or
yep.
Okay. How are you doing? Aside from trying to satiate your hunger.
Best possible path through the multiverse.
I thought you don't believe in the multiverse.
Well, if there is a multiverse, I've got the best thread through it. Multiverse is, the universe divides into multiple universes, with every quantum transition, and so. But I'm great. Okay. How are you? What's going on?
I'm hungry and I'm kind
of tired. Me too. We kind of got started a little late tonight, but
yeah, it's fine. You know what's going to end up happening is that we're going to end up ending this a little early because, we're talking about something which I don't think you believe is. Well, actually, you know what? Instead of just saying something like that, let's just say we're going to maintain schedule. We're going to talk about the EmDrive for a bit. So what exactly is that? And you suggested this, I think, 2 weeks ago. And no, not 2 weeks ago.
I'm not sure how I got interested or how it came to my attention. I knew about it, several years ago, and that's this thing called EmDrive, or otherwise known as the impossible drive. And most of the people who talk about science, you really can't even get a grip on it. I mean, because what it's supposed to be is ultimately at the bottom line is it's a device that's supposed to create momentum, right? Without any, without any propellant. So it's a rocket engine, supposedly a thruster, and it has a very weak thrust. And so it's hard for a physicist to actually even talk about it because it has there's no principle of operation that you can talk about, right? So that's I don't know if we have any diagrams or any pictures of it, but there was a physicist in the UK named Sharer, and he invented this thing about 20 some years ago in the late 90s, and he came out and promoted it very vigorously, saying that this is a special kind of thruster, And the weird thing about it, there it is. Okay, so it looks like a rocket engine, right? So
Yeah, it
it
does.
looks kind of plausible. But if we were to turn that around, we'd see that it was closed at both ends.
Now,
Right.
a rocket works by expelling mass.
Right.
And
So and even yeah. So even a um, ion thruster or a Hall effect thruster, they have a reservoir of neutral gas that they ionize and expel. And so most people know that, when you push on something, you have to push on something else in order to go forward. So if your car stalls and you need a push, and if you have a passenger, you say, "Can you get out and push?" Right? They don't
right,
just sit in the front seat, and push on the windshield,
yeah,
or get out and then they get in the back seat and push on the front seat to push. That doesn't happen. And so that's what this device purports to do. And it's a microwave resonant cavity with a wider end at one side, and so it's in the form of this truncated cone. And people have put these things in measurement chambers and suspended them from a torsion balance. If you remember the Cavendish experiment 200 years ago, where
about that.
I don't remember Cavendish's first name, but he was an Englishman who was really obsessed with this idea of measuring gravity in ponderable things on the Earth, and he did it. He succeeded in getting in observing the force of gravity between two objects on the Earth, and he invented a kind of torsion balance where he put it in his garden and isolated it. I mean, put it in his great greenhouse and isolated it from air currents, and to this day you can still do these kind of experiments in high school. But that's measuring the gravitational torque, and you can. This thing was put in the same kind of apparatus, and it's purported to. The suggestion is that that people have measured some thrust out of it, and it's so difficult to talk about it because, first of all, the experimental results that I've seen from NASA actually looked at this Johnson Space Flight Center. I think there's a lab called Eagleworks or something. Am I right about that? Eagleworks.
You are right about that. I don't know if
Uh,
that still exists. Let me see.
and I don't know either, but there was a guy named Harold.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Let me post this.
there was a guy named Harold over there. And Harold White, and he wrote this paper. And I'm not impressed with I'm not impressed with his statistics. He has this huge scatter in his measurements where he's trying to show the thrust as a function of power input. Let me be clear, this is not something that creates energy, but it creates momentum, and these are two separate kinds of things.
Okay.
So
Continue
scroll down and see if you can find the diagram in this paper.
All right.
It's
look at that.
no,
that's not it.
no.
This thing,
That was calibration stuff.
Electrostatic paddle force calibration system, quantum vacuum plasma, Q thrusters, quantum vacuum, blah blah blah.
There's a lot of equations and things like that, but there. So
is this what you're talking about?
I'm not sure. No, I don't think so. I think
for using it for going into.
I think that's all. Oh, I don't see the
demonstrating experiment. But what were you trying to find?
Well, I don't know where that paper is, but he was showing the thrust as a function of power input, with the idea that there was a increase in power. There was an increase in thrust as he increases power, which is pretty kind of a compelling kind of thing that he's actually doing something. But I was not impressed with the results. There's so much scatter in it, and it makes you wonder, why don't you run it for a long time to get your error down?
Right.
But the biggest problem that we all have with this is that there's no physical principle that can be exploited in order to show that this works. It's basically a closed cavity that's fed with antennas, to excite a microwave standing wave in there, and that somehow that will produce thrust. And
So you're saying these equations, it doesn't matter what is going on.
it doesn't matter what those equations are. If you open the wide end, and you could get some thrust from the photons that are being emitted. That would be a photon thruster, but that would be the microwave frequency is the wrong frequency. Should be using a much higher energy kind of. You could use a laser to create thrust. But the guy that invented it, this English guy, he seems to be a kind of promoter. And I've seen YouTube videos where he's talking about, in a few years, we're going to have thrusters everywhere. We're going to be having elevated cars and hoverboards, and
I mean, I want to get one of those, but I don't know.
It's going to be just like Back to the Future. He's going to power a DeLorean with it.
This is the one that you're saying. This guy.
Yeah, and
Satellite Propulsion Research Ltd. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, I guess maybe our audience might be thinking, "Oh, well, I need to get with the program. That this is a visionary person, and that it's just and the oil companies are trying to shut him down, and that's not it at all. It's that this is not a
guy, probably Roger Sawyer, right?
Sawyer. Yeah. This does not have any physics that I know. Now you can say, well, you don't know the physics. It's like, well, I mean,
there's certain fundamental laws of physics which
right. And I think a lot of people don't, they think of science as the same way that people who believe in Harry Potter. It's like sorcery. So it's just a magical thing, right? So science is just a magic thing to believe in. And so if it's not producing what you want, then you just believe in something else, right?
So you say it's like Harry Potter. Since I was just having a conversation with that. Well, I was going to the Renaissance Fair talking about how. Anyways.
Okay, yeah, Harry Potter.
Okay, go on.
I didn't go this year. I missed the vampire guys that I was hanging out with a few years ago, but there's a tribe of vampires there.
There's a tribe of vampires?
A tribe of vampires that frequents the Renaissance Fair in Houston.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and I remember coming around a corner. And there was a guy who looked just like, Dracula, and I shouted. I said, "Vlad, how are you?" So anyway, I'm off task. I don't know what else to say about this thing. I can't tell you what the working principle is because I don't think there is a working principle. I think that the measurement.
So when people say, "Hey, we detected like a net momentum," it could be from experimental error. That's what you're saying, right?
It's some kind of mistake, yeah, right. and wishful thinking, because the measurement. So they're really not measuring thrust; they're measuring the deformation of an angle, right? So they're measuring that, the twisting of this thing, and so there's all kinds of things. But I don't even really want to speculate about that. I mean,
suppose this is what's happening
because there's no physical principle that is operating. I can't even say, well, how big should you make the small end compared to the big end? How do you optimize this thing? What is you have no physical principle to operate on in order to work with in order to say anything about this. And I don't want to like go into trying to explain where all of the errors are coming from. Some researchers, when this first came out in 2016, that group right here in Houston, the group I know the guy, all right. So
all right, Eagleworks, NASA Propulsion.
I just don't know. I just don't know what to say about this. It's the the measured thrust was so weak that it's really not a it's really there could be some other kind of experimental result in order. So this really is an people don't realize it, but this is really one of those kind of extraordinary claims. It's a very extraordinary claim to say that.
What's that? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Who said that?
Well, I believe it was attributed to Carl Sagan, and I don't necessarily, latch onto that because something extraordinary could just leave ordinary evidence. So a lot of ordinary evidence about something that's extraordinary, is maybe
right. Okay.
Equivalent to.
Doesn't even have ordinary.
But this thing is so outrageous. It's like I would sooner believe that the Congress has been infiltrated by lizard people than I believe that this thing is true. So that's and I'm open to being convinced, but you need really need some compelling experimental evidence. I know that that people have tried to look at it and there's been ambiguous results. I know there was a group in China that started working on it.
But they also showed later that, hey, wait a minute, it was experimental error. So it doesn't seem like anybody has actually come up with anything.
It doesn't, yeah. So and I know I'm a little bit disorganized talking about it, but I wish that I had something to say. I have seen them talk about, well, it's pilot wave theory. I go, well, what do pilot wave theory is an interpretation of quantum mechanics that's attributed to David Bohm. What he says is that actually the particles really do travel, that particles do have a distinct position and velocity, and that they're guided by the wave function. And there's all kinds of interesting things having to do with that. But you can't get a grip on what they're saying, or that there's a principle of remember we've talked about the black holes and the what do you call it? The particles, virtual particles that are being produced all the time in the vacuum energy and vacuum state of particles. That somehow it's grabbing hold of those particles and accelerating them, but then the physicist says, well, yeah, I mean you could do that, but then the particles would just rattle around inside of your system. If you were to, you could throw some of those particles out. Somehow they could get through the copper and out, but then that's just a photon drive, which is not interesting. You could, some of the theory that I saw was that it had to do with virtual particle annihilation on the far cosmological horizon. Because if you remember, we talked about how the universe is expanding, and that the further away you are, the faster it's expanding until there's a certain surface that's surrounding all of us that's billions and billions of light years away, where the expansion exceeds the speed of light. And so the thought is that there's particle pair production on that boundary that has some radiation that's coming to us that's analogous to Hawking radiation from black holes. And so, but it's like just arm waving and then not explaining. Yeah, it's arm waving. So anyway, maybe we're done. Maybe that's all we want to say about this. So you're muted. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted, bro.
I am muted. Except
yes.
You saw me. Okay, so fundamentally, for our listeners, what is the physics law that's breaking?
Conservation of momentum. Okay. It does require energy. Yeah.
Everybody
it requires energy.
But you cannot break conservation of momentum, and that's what EmDrive is breaking.
Yes, it's okay. So your passenger is inside your car, and they're pushing on the windshield to give you a push. They're sitting in the front seat, and they're pushing on the windshield, and
this is something
that's what they're doing.
I got this whole thing from
Yeah.
NASA. That's all, right?
Yeah. Conservation of mass of momentum. So that,
Basically,
yes.
fundamental concept of physics along with the conservation of energy,
Yeah.
conservation of mass.
Uh-huh.
Mass of an object multiplied velocity of the object. The conservation states that within some problem domain, the amount of momentum remains constant. Momentum is neither created nor destroyed, but only changed through
Right.
action forces described by Newton's laws of motion.
Yeah.
So, in the
And
EmDrive, you're trying to, like Leonard, you were saying, you're creating somehow momentum by pushing yourself inside. Like you're creating.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you have a sailboat and and you have a fan and so you're holding the fan and you're blowing against the sail. And so you actually might be able to get a little bit of thrust if you could reverse it, a little bit and get it to blow in the opposite direction. But so anyway, all right. Well, we paid our dues. We talked
have
about
paid
the
our dues.
EmDrive. I did read that one of the reasons that we're talking about this is because there is
yeah.
some experimental group somewhere that has flown it.
Although, you know what's interesting is that they say, so these guys, right? IBO Quantum Drive, they say they are not the EmDrive, even though some people say they are basically doing like they're trying to break the conservation momentum as well. So,
Okay.
is this what you're talking
Anyway, I guess so. It was in the news, and a colleague of mine sent me a picture of it, and
about? This thing.
and kind of laughed about it. And of course, I don't really, I just don't really think much about this. I think it's you don't want to just dismiss it, right? You want to pay attention to it, but they're not doing they're not walking the walk. They're not doing the stuff they need to do to show that this is a real thing. And so, and it's kind of a sad commentary. I think I'm pretty confident that this is just going to be another, another
Actually, this article
hoax.
Maybe you read this one.
I do think that the guy that Shire guy, I do think that he's committing a hoax. I think that he's a hoaxster.
So
There
for
was
anybody who actually wants to understand a little bit more on why this doesn't seem to work, you can read this article, Reconciling Reactionless Propulsive Drive with the First Law of Thermodynamics.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, read that.
So
I don't know who that is, but
can generate thrust without consuming reaction mass, has long been sought by propulsion engineers. The so-called space drive. Such a device might be discounted as violating the conservation of momentum. However, this fact has not deterred a number of researchers in attempting to hypothesize, in some cases, build such a device. And anyways, I'm not going to read the whole thing.
So the interesting thing about it, some people say, well, a photon drive, if you use the reaction from a photon drive, you're not consuming any propellant, but in fact, you are. You're as you believe it or not, if you were to use let's say a flashlight, right, and you were to shine it in space, there would be a very tiny little bit of thrust that you're getting from the photons that are being rejected there, and that's coming at the expense of the mass. E equals mc squared, right? The batteries in your thing, or the fuel that you're using to create that electricity is being consumed, and even with 100% efficiency, the fact that you're throwing those photons out, the energy mass equivalence, and you will be expending a kind of propellant in that respect. So
okay,
anyway,
that's definitely good to know. I did not. Thanks for explaining that. Like a photon drive is actually not breaking.
A photon drive does not break the principle of conservation of momentum. I guess I would like to be able to think of. My intuition tells me that there is some kind of paradox that would appear from ability to create momentum, but I'm not sure exactly what that is, what that would be. I've given it some thought, but we have some kind of paradox having to do with the fact that we're creating momentum out of nothing. So anyway.
Yeah. All right. You know what I want to talk about for a little bit?
Where are you going to get a tattoo?
Did you say am I getting a tattoo?
Well, you asked me if I knew what you wanted to talk about. I don't have any idea, so I just guessed that maybe you're thinking about getting a dragon on your somewhere.
No, I'm not. I'm not looking for a dragon
Okay.
tattoo. Although if I
Me
get one,
either.
I'll probably get a UFO or something. So can you guess what I want to talk about?
UFOs.
Yay! All right, a little bit. Okay, so
Now this is the payment that I have to do. Yes, I have a lot of fun doing this, and then so now I have to pay you by talking to you about UFOs.
that's like that's a to me that's a fun part. Well, I mean, talking about the main subject's fun too, but
Yeah.
All right, so here let's see what this is. All right, so I found this little video. All right, so you tell me what you think is going on, and
A thunderstorm.
and you here is this thing. Okay, good.
These are storm chasers.
All right, so what is happening there? I mean, like that's remarkable, right? Do you see that? Like,
I see something red and orange in the middle of the screen. So what? Something's on fire?
Okay, is this thing even playing, or did it just get stuck?
I don't know. It is playing.
Now it is playing. Okay. Okay, it was stuck for a moment, I think.
Looks like a water tower to me, like that's painted red and white. I can't really tell anything.
You can't tell anything?
No.
Okay, so. Whatever. Don't.
Oh, she's gonna talk. Okay. Right.
No, I am muted this whole thing. So okay. Anyways, this was a terrible video.
Okay, bro, just a second. Okay, I sense that you're about to start reading something.
I am about to read.
Okay, so when you start reading,
yeah,
speak
slow
and clear. Put little gaps between each word, and then you'll be understood. I have this problem with my daughter.
Really?
She speaks. She's not a. She's. I guess she's. What is a? Is she? She's not a Gen Zer. She's a Gen. She was born in '98. What would that make her?
That is a Gen Zer.
Is that a Gen Zer? Okay, so she'll come in and say, "Dad, did you eat?" And I'll go, "What? Dad, did you eat?" So it's, "Dad, did you eat?" And so it's like that's how they talk.
Gen Z. Gen Z is late 90s to early 2000s.
Okay. Well.
So.
Anyway.
I'm gonna read this very slowly so that.
Well, very slowly, but at an appropriate pace.
For those who saw this video just now and have no idea what was going on, which seems like some guy focused through the windshield, some red thing. All right, so give you context. Coast to Coast listener Norman writes that he and his family were returning home from shopping in Evansville, Indiana, on September 27th, 2023. Yeah. When they saw a brilliant pulsing red light, almost metallic in color. At first, there was one large one. Then the second one came out of nowhere and stayed a moment and entered the large one as seen in the video. Then there was one, and it just vanished. It didn't move. It just vanished. At first, the distant object looked like the sun, but this was disproved very quickly. Okay, so that was what the video was showing. Which, according to Leonard, probably does not look terribly convincing.
No, it's not very convincing.
Maybe for these things, like you have to be there to be convinced. Like
yeah.
Like that,
Well, if you remember, some months ago, I sent you a video that was similar to this of a blimp. Right?
No blimp. That's some orange thing.
No. Well, I don't know what I'm not. I don't have any dispositive information to determine what that is. But I sent you a picture of a blimp, right? And it was flying, and it was somewhat ambiguous at first. But I spent enough time looking at it and taking pictures of it that you eventually were able to discern what it was. I don't know what's So they stopped long enough to take some pictures of it.
I think at
And
this point, these people should have, if they want to be convincing, stop the car, get out, and take some pictures. Better pictures.
better pictures.
Yep. And yeah,
And
okay.
the biggest problem with all of this stuff is that there are more cameras on Earth than there are people. So why don't we have clear, convincing,
Well, most
clear and
cameras
convincing?
aren't really pointed towards the sky now, right? And if if you're gonna observe some phenomenon, you have to be very quickly like whatever you're looking at isn't gonna. These things they don't stay there for very long. So
Okay.
my view that even though we have all these millions of cameras, only a small segment of them, like you still have to be
Billions of cameras.
billions of cameras. Okay,
Right.
fine.
So
All right, fine. All right. Any case, all right. Well, with that, I think we hit a good time.
yeah,
31
31 minutes. Okay.
I know. Considering that the first part. Oh, I forgot to say some very important things. So
About
let me
your
first of all say,
supporters.
support
Yeah.
the show on patreon.com/SG2 on space. And
Yep.
you know what else? I know I had this ticker running down here that says support. Thank you to our supporters and patrons, Kyle Baker, Sam Welsh. I got one more person who supported it, John Graves. I don't know if he's listening, but thank you for adding your good job to you for watching the show and
Yeah.
donating there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Keep watching, and because we can be pretty entertaining sometimes.
Especially if you're watching Leonard, I don't know,
I
talk about anything really. It's hilarious.
Is it? We're just having a conversation.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, for any for people's reference, you can go to patreon.com/SG2 on space.
Yep.
And for the actual show, of course, if you're assuming that you're already watching this, then you should know you can go on YouTube and it'd be SG2 on space. You can easily find it. And for episodes before the time of Leonard, you may have to dig around on Facebook some as well. But
And do we have any message for our viewers 10,000 years in the future?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Who
So
might be
unlike
watching this?
other shows, we prepare ourselves for our viewers not of the present time, but of like
For
10,000 years in the future.
posterity, yes.
We
Right.
have
We're
no
gonna
context at all of like what this thing that Leonard has around his head is. Or really anything. Like these are clothes, by the way.
These are clothes. Yeah.
They're required for our so that people culturally speaking,
Right.
as well as for warmth. So in the future, no doubt, you guys probably still have not broken the fundamental laws of physics. So you may.
I don't think so, but I mean, I could be wrong.
I don't know.
And actually, if you've mastered time travel, I invite you to come back and have a beer with me. I'll open a bottle of wine or whatever.
So isn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Stephen Hawking, I believe, at one point arrange a time travel party?
I did read that. Yeah, I did read that
Where he invited future time travelers to come to this party, and nobody showed up.
Nobody showed up,
Because
right?
how he did it was interesting. That he did not send out any announcements that the party was taking place. He announced the party took place after the party finished. So the only way you would have known is if you're from the future, right?
Yeah, there's something paradoxical about it that I need to think about how to articulate that. But
right. But then
anyway, that's the show for tonight. What do you think?
All right, enough blabbing. So once again, this has been SG2 on Space. Next week, either Tuesday night or Wednesday night, we'll figure it out. Next week will be episode 199.
Whoa, we're getting close.
We're getting close to 100. No doubt, we're talking about another exciting topic with Dr. Leonard Kramer and myself, Shen Ge. So with that said, we will end the show now. And
Namaste,
Namaste.
shalom, and mwah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That one.